Violence breaks out at a rally at the University of Washington. A day intended to be peaceful.
We just want to have our nice time together, but there's always the opposition.
Ends with arrest and pepper spray.
For hours, protesters and counter-protesters chanted their messages on the University of Washington campus. At one point, things got out of hand, police using tear gas and breaking up the crowd, and 5 people were arrested. We have team coverage. KOMO's Morgan Chesky with the breakdown of what happened at Red Square.
Yeah, good evening. It was a sleepy Saturday turned shouting match here at UW's Red Square. Police arriving very early to make sure that both of these sides had the necessary space to keep the peace when the shouting started.
Saturday at the University of Washington.
We're peaceful people.
Say it loud, say it clear.
We just want to be able to come out and be with peaceful people. We can talk to people and not get in arguments. We just want to have our nice time together.
A Red Square divided. 2 sides shouting so loud, not even a sage cleanse could keep the peace. Behind the barricades and police stood Patriot Prayer, a group self-described as conservatives fighting corruption, big government, and today, an even bigger crowd.
I think that it's really sad that the fact that Americans want to come and exist and just have free speech, that would cause violence.
Joey Gibson founded the group in Vancouver, Washington. His message? American freedoms are being forgotten. For proof, he pointed across the barricade to each face hidden behind a hood.
I think that it's really frustrating. There's no reason for them to be our enemies because we actually have a lot in common, but there's been a lot of lies, a lot of deception in the media and politicians. And so I think that if they listen to our message, they probably agree with like 80% of it.
But today, the only common ground witnessed was this, a face-off between both sides, leaving these 2 to walk away in handcuffs.
And a last check with police, 5 arrests in total from this protest, all of them disorderly conduct. The good news to report tonight, no injuries. At UW's Red Square, Morgan Chesky, KOMO News.
No injuries. That is good news indeed. Well, the day started with a counter-protest rally that happened away from Red Square. This map actually shows their route. They started at the hub on the UW campus, then marched to Red Square. KOMO's Mitch Pittman reports the counter-protesters easily outnumbered the rally's crowd. Mitch?
Yeah, Michelle, the counter-protesters ended up outnumbering the other group 3 or 4 to 1, and it was a busy day following them around campus. It started around noon when more than a dozen separate groups came together as one and held a rally outside the Student Center. They then marched the short distance to Red Square, where more than 3 hours of chanting, shouting, and the occasional scuffle took place. When we spoke with organizers beforehand, their goal was to be peaceful, and we did see them trying to draw folks away from conflicts. But of course, other groups also joined in the counter-protest. Many people wearing masks, dressed in black, others in military-style clothing were here, and they did throw bottles at police and did try to shove those out from the right who came into the crowd. Though it was clear that the majority of the 300 or 400 counter-protesters who came out here were simply trying to drown out the voices of the other side.
We want to say, that they're not the majority here and then they're not welcome on campus. And so we're trying to bring together as many people as possible to protest these people non-violently.
But look at this. People here aren't afraid of them. People here are saying, no, this is our campus. Our campus. My campus.
Ultimately, it was a very familiar feel for those of us who have covered these Seattle protests before, even some familiar faces on both sides of these clashes. Michelle?
All right, Mitch, thanks very much. The University of Washington expects today's rally to cost them about $50,000 in security costs. UW have asked the college Republicans to pay $17,000 before the Patriot Prayer event, but the college group challenged the university and they took them to federal court. The college Republicans won a temporary restraining order from a federal judge. The matter now goes back to court. And tonight, the organizers of the rally, the UW College Republicans, are calling it a big success. Their featured guest was the Patriot Prayer founder. KOMO's Suzanne Fawn has reaction from organizers.
The barriers are still up here tonight. They were separating the counter demonstrators and the demonstrators. Up here on this side, there was a big group that turned out to hear the college Republicans speak. They say they were standing by to defend freedom of speech. Now, Joey Gibson with the Patriot Prayer Group took the microphone today in a fenced-off corner of Red Square. In a crowd of about 100 supporters, there were college Republicans, Trump fans, and other members of the Patriot Prayer Groups. Many smiling, some recording video of the counter-protest approaching. watching. Also in the group, a lot of media. Now, the rally organizer, who happens to be the president of UW Republicans, and supporters say they are gathering to promote free speech and to fight back against those who deny that right.
We came out here specifically to talk about free speech. That's all.
I think that we've proven that protests like this, violent threats to us, doesn't work, that we'll still speak. And I think that was the big one, that free speech is something that we're going to defend and that they're not going to shout us down from. I think we proved that.
Swanson says today's rally was a huge success. He says there would have been even more people attending his rally if there wasn't so much security. The rally organizer says that critics have called him and members of the Patriot Prayer group white nationalists, but he says those claims are unfounded. He says basically today, again, was just to promote the freedom of speech and to promote nonviolent protest. At UW, Suzanne Fawn, KOMO News.
Another guest invited by college Republicans last year caused violence in UW's Red Square. Controversial speaker Milo Yiannopoulos spoke at the university on the day of President Trump's inauguration. Protesters on both sides clashed, and one person ended up being shot but survived. A husband and wife charged in the case are due in court next month. And just last August, the Patriot Prayer Group held a rally at Westlake Plaza in Seattle. Again, violence erupted between groups there. Police said they were forced at that rally to use blast balls and pepper spray. 3 people there were arrested. UW police kept the upper hand throughout the rally, and they had plenty of backup from Seattle PD. KOMO's Tammy Mutasa reports on how their swift action kept the event orderly.
Michelle, this year you could definitely see extra police officers, especially with so much tension. They were on the ground lighting up these barriers. They were up on the roof, and they acted very quickly when fights broke out. Now you can see in this video of police moving in to break up several violent fights using crowd control tactics. We saw several people getting arrested, at least 2 of them women, and get taken away. Now both sides had been divided by barriers with baton-wielding police officers standing in the barriers, but still Patriot Prayer ralliers and counter-protesters would walk to each other's sides. Verbal exchanges turned into yelling, which turned into shoving and several fights, but police always had the upper hand.
I mean, it's really just unfortunate that, both sides don't have a platform to express their opinions, and we can't do that in America now without, all the violence and just the provoking on both sides. It's really sad to see.
Now, university officials had told students to stay away from Red Square until about 5 p.m., but you can see things are back to normal after a tense afternoon. Back to you.
All right, Tammy, thanks very much. Glad nobody was injured. We're going to change gears now.
A so-called freedom rally turned violent on the University of Washington campus. Protesters were pepper sprayed, an American flag was burned, all of it leading to several arrests.
And thanks for joining us. I'm David Solano.
And I'm Lindsay Sheldon. Seattle police tell us in all 5 people were taken into custody. The hundreds of protesters at the rally far outnumbered its supporters. And the rally almost didn't happen.
KIRO 7's Deborah Horn is live in Red Square. And Deborah, that's because the university tried forcing the organizers to pay a $17,000 security fee.
But David, a federal court judge said yesterday that the university could not do that. And so this rally went on as planned. But you can see several steps were taken to try to keep the peace. Police put up these barricades to try to keep the group separated, and they seem to work for at least a time. This is the event that the college Republicans say they had envisioned, a free expression of their ideas on the University of Washington campus.
You tell me I can't come out here and speak in an open public park, I'm going to come here no matter what.
But the focus of the so-called Freedom Rally was Joey Gibson, the alt-right founder of the Patriot Prayer movement based in Vancouver, Washington. He says opposition to him is not based on reality.
It's ridiculous. It's all just a lie. There's no reason for them to be out here. I respect the right to be out here, but I'm here to talk about freedom and God and love, and so I don't know why they'd be against that.
But some of his own followers seem to be spoiling for a fight, going around the barriers Seattle and University of Washington police had put up to keep his group separated from the hundreds of protesters who showed up too. The altercations led to several people being pepper sprayed. What remained of an American flag was burned too. In all, 5 people were arrested. At some point, the Patriot Prayer group quietly left to the delight of protest organizers.
We have shut them down. We have drowned them out. We are louder. We are stronger.
Now, the college Republicans say this is not the end for them. They plan to continue pursuing their federal court case against the university. So stay tuned. Reporting live in Red Square at the University of Washington, Deborah Horn, KIRO 7 News.
We have seen violence erupt during other controversial events at the University of Washington. In January of 2017, an appearance by Milo Yiannopoulos sparked protests that led to a man getting shot in the stomach on inauguration night. The victim survived. A couple was charged with assault.